Welcome in, folks, to the Can We Kick It podcast. I'm your co-host Mike, along with Chuck here.
What's up?
Not much, man. How you doing?
I'm living, man.
Yeah,
Livin.
just living. Yeah.
Just living, man.
Uh,
What we get a little late recording this week,
yeah.
but
It's
we're getting
a
it
weird
done.
time for shows. Yeah, I mean, it's we're recording this on Sunday night, but there's kind of not much on right now in our wheelhouse for the most part. With House of the Dragon ending and the Bear, I think we both took our sweet time on the Bear, but
Yeah.
both of those are over. So now there's kind of a lull. But there's some other shows that are about to start.
Yes. Yeah. So it's been, kind of this week. I really finished House of Dragon early in the week and then hadn't really watched much TV except for Cowboy Cartel on Apple TV, which is a little documentary about cartel members buying horses and laundering money through horse racing, which was neat. Which was a good little, I think it's like 4 episodes. Nice, easy
Now,
watch.
is Glenn Powell in that one too?
Yeah, he's the main horse trainer.
Ah.
He plays Armando Zapata. Let's
Yeah.
talk about, we want to talk about the Bear or House of the Dragon. Let's do House of the Dragon first, and then we can.
Yeah. Let's talk Hot D because I think that'll be a little bit easier to get through.
Yeah, there's some thoughts on both.
Yeah. So,
So
House of the Dragon, right, is all now. So last season ended with Rhaenyra losing Jace,
mhm,
because Aemon killed him with Vagar, right?
mhm.
And so this whole season has been about her getting over that and then trying to reestablish her position to be able to fight in this war because dragons are the key.
Yeah.
Now we've got some non-royals flying dragons. So now the myth has kind of been busted that only royalty can do this kind of thing. Yeah, they're of blood, but they're not of they're not court born, so to say.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because, like, I think if I was to surmise this season, it was Rhaenyra's revenge for the death of her child, and basically Daemon killing um one of, was it Aegon's children,
Yes.
a child for a child, just like the eye for, well, it started with Aemon because Jacaerys took the eye, and then they're just killing kids back
It's
and
just tit
forth.
for tat. Yeah.
Yeah, and then so it's like, and then like you said, her grieving, and then it's just kind of this chess match, and then like it's just moving pieces. This season was moving pieces around the board,
Yeah.
setting up like, okay, now Rhaenyra has like this many dragons, and like it is of consequence who they're ridden by, but now it's basically like we have 4 dragons or 7 dragons versus they only have 3, and or whatever. I
Yeah.
forget the total numbers, but
Yeah.
um and really kind of like they nerfed Aegon, right? Like he gets toasted by his brother, and
Yeah.
now like in the finale, he's whisked away by Lucerys. I mean, not Lucerys. What's his name?
Oh,
The weirdo foot fetish
Clubfoot.
guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Laris.
Larys, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and
Laris, the foot lover. Yeah.
yeah, Larys the foot fetish. Larys the fetish.
Yeah.
And then Olivia Cook, um, Allison is like debating whether to leave, and basically offer the end is basically like, we do have in the season Rhaenyra going to make a plea to Allison, sneaking in the city, and Allison like, nah, fuck that. we're good.
Yeah.
And then
Finding out
Allison
that the
goes,
family shouldn't just reuse fucking
yeah.
Aegons for the last 1,000 fucking years. Yeah.
And then Allison, going now to Dragonstone and doing the same to Rhaenyra, but Rhaenyra basically gets her to say, all right, like, we're gonna kill Aegon or whatever, or Aemon, I forget which one. But
Yep.
it's just been it's been a good season. I like the Daemon stuff at Harrenhal. The
All for
vision
that.
at the Weirwood tree. I mean, they spent a lot of time. I mean, Damon's been like sidelined the whole season there, but I like the kind of, is Allison strong? Like, is she real? Is, like, is he seeing things? But we know when he goes out, he's here seeing, hearing things in Harrenhal. And but so you kind of get a sense of what's real or what's not. But when he touches a tree, gets like the visions, and we see the three-eyed raven, we see Daenerys sitting with her three dragons, you know, at like a flashback scene, or in this case, flash forward to Game of Thrones. So the interesting part for me, and get your thoughts on this, is we know where this ends up. I mean, anything, these are all books too, right? I mean, in Game of
Yep.
Thrones, it took liberties because it was kind of like the end of the story, or what we have from George R. R. Martin, right? And then but the House of the Dragon is like the Civil War leading up to where we get to. So, like, we know that it's the dragons destroying themselves. So, you kind of, this could have been done in like 2 seasons or 3 seasons, but I did hear that with the strike, they kind of shortened it, and they potentially moved the big battle that we would have expected to see at the end of the season into next season. So, what are your thoughts on, like, on this kind of show where we know what's going to happen, or
It's
the
really
general
difficult.
arc of it? Yeah.
I think the only time, I don't think, has it, let me ask you this. Has a show put out a timeline and then put out a prequel, and has it actually ever been up to standards? Because I don't think so.
And I think you get in that territory with Star Wars too. Like, it's,
Exactly.
how do you make it, when you know the outcome, how do you make it like
Entertaining, drawing.
entertaining and like suspenseful, or
Exactly.
where
Exactly.
the stakes are high, where
Yeah.
like, okay, this person's going to survive, so what's the stakes? Why am I
Yeah.
invested in it? And
Yeah.
should I
It,
care?
you could do that. Star Wars definitely came to my mind first, and then Lord of the Rings, and then they did the Hobbit trilogy before that. And it's like everybody really just gives a shit about the ring. Like that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
It's really hard for the show to create a prequel to a story that a lot of people really liked. And all of this is stuff that's been discussed inside the Game of Thrones TV series and in the books, and that's what a lot of this is drawn from.
Hmm.
Um, it's pretty tough to do. There are parts that I like. Now, I'll be honest. I've read part of the book. I've looked
Yeah.
ahead. I know everything that happens. I know who dies and who doesn't, and I know who like all the backstabbers are and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
They do present it in a great way. This season just felt slow. The only thing I really enjoyed for me was Damon and Harrenhal and
Yeah.
his visions, and then the vision almost felt a little too on the nose of him seeing
Yeah.
the White Walkers. And
Yeah, that was cool.
yeah, it was almost like time is a flat circle in True Detective season 4, night garbage country. But it was a little too on the nose, but it was good because it changed how everything went. He's just Matthew Smith, who plays Damon, is just such a great actor. I don't think they're
Yeah.
using him the right way. It's such a shame.
Yeah. In season 1, he like carried it, and then the two younger Rhaenyras and Allison were awesome,
Yeah,
and then Matt Smith was awesome, and then the
yeah.
actor that played Jacaerys
Oh yeah,
was great. Or
yeah,
Viserys, no, Viserys, the first
yeah.
king.
Viserys the first. Yeah,
Viserys,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So,
yeah. Patty Constantine. Yeah,
yes, yeah.
yeah.
So you basically nerfed like one of the best things the last season, and now you kind of focused on different parts of moving pieces around. Like for example, when you go, I mean, like they went to the Vale, you saw the crossing, um the twins, and you see the fray, like you see some of this with great Game of Thrones, and initially you're like, oh great. But like, do I care about Kevin Lannister like mud wrestling some girl to have them sail with them? Or like there was no, it didn't feel like it was backstoried enough.
No,
Like,
I agree.
well, that's the thing. Like Game of Thrones gave you like 6 fucking seasons through, or seven, 8 seasons, whatever it was, to go through that. Because the first season, you're like, oh, cool, you got the Starks, and these guys rule the roost, and the Barath. I mean, you got names, but you got the story, and and then it's like, oh shit, Ned's head got cut off. Like, wait, we got chaos. We got, um, all these people. We got it just became like you became vested. You got that gut punch because you're invested, like, oh, the Starks, these are honorable people in this non-honorable world, and everybody's stabbing each other in the back, and these people, like, are great. And then you got the Lannisters, and like pushing kids out the window, and then like under, trying to make sure they don't get charged, and Ned's head gets cut off, and then
Yeah,
everything changes. It's like,
it's rotted at its core, right? You think
yeah,
Robert Baratheon took over and defeated the Targaryens, but in reality, the Lannisters just place themselves in control, even though Baratheon thinks he's in control, because none of
yeah,
those kids are his kids,
yeah.
right?
Well,
Um,
my major thing through, so George R. R. Martin, does he have a problem with like, did someone cheat on him, or like were his parents divorced or something?
Probably.
Like everybody's kids are not like the spouse, or is he way ahead of his time? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, like Rhaenyra's kids are fucking Harlan Strong or whatever was the I forgot that from season one, where like, oh yeah, he has black hair or brown hair because his dad was like
Yeah.
this other guy, and then like,
He wasn't a
and,
Targaryen. He didn't have silver hair. Yeah.
and then yeah, and then all like Baratheon and Cersei's kids were all like Jamie's and Cersei's, and uh like Jon Snow was Aegon, or one of the um freaking dragon, and then also his sister. So it's like there's nobody, and even like Corwus's kids, like his two, like, it's just like,
It's two bastard sons.
yeah, Alan and Adam. I love it. That's
Yeah.
like, they give like the commoners like have, well, not even common, like Lannister's like Kevin Lannister.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Yeah, it's like Dune. It's like there's Paul Atreides and Duke Leto Atreides, and then there's Duncan Idaho, and it's like, did you just pull fucking names out of a hat? Like, oh, let's go
it's
with
an
David. Yeah,
AI generator.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think it's hard to do a show with a prequel considering we know all of the badass players, and then you pull in these players from this world, right? Which I like that we get to see the what they call small folk, which in our time we
Yeah,
would call the lower middle class or lower or
yeah,
the lower income class.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but they show all this, oh, these people have hated these people for 1,000 years. Can we just get over this shit so we can all fight and take over? And oh, but we'll bend the knee to you. Like that's all kind of cool and stuff. But like, cool, you're showing me like a Stark that doesn't fucking matter in the great realm of all the Starks. Like it's a guy that doesn't matter. Cool. Like, or a
yeah,
Lannister that doesn't matter. So this is Jamie's great great grandfather. Why do I care? Like, yeah, he's over here mud wrestling with Polly Shore or whatever her name was.
yeah, yeah. Her
But
name was Sue
yeah,
Cranston.
yeah, but yeah, it's a tough thing to do. It's hard to do when you know how to some degree how this is going to end. I think it's cool how it's going to end, just based on stuff that I've read, and from the actual. We'll see how
Yeah.
they stick to it, but I think they'll try to use the excuse that just because history's written doesn't mean it happened exactly that way. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's
And it
probably
can
what
be,
they'll get off with.
yeah, and it can, interpretation is up to the viewer and the
Yeah.
reader. And so you can take liberties. And I don't know if they've said like everything is canon, like, in Star Wars, like if it's happened in the universe, like we're not changing it, or it's can't, like, so,
Yeah.
I mean, it could be something different, but it will be interesting. I mean, because I still think it's a great show, and I
Oh,
really enjoyed, I like, you know, um, I think in, Game of Thrones, there was like, it's people and rooms drinking wine, and having a conversation.
yeah.
And at the end of the day, if it's good writing, and it's good source material that makes it palatable. But usually you want to see more. I mean, like, but the action scenes with the drag, Aemon burning Aegon and his dragon, um, you know, there was some good scenes, but they did, they cut flash forward to a lot of, through a lot of different battles
Yeah.
where you don't see the battles. Like in Game of Thrones, you would have an hour and a half long
Oh,
episode of just like a battle,
Battle of the
so
Bastards, baby. Yeah.
yeah, Battle of the Bastards, Hard Home, um, there there's so many good episodes like that. But it's a hard thing. It's, that's why, sequels don't always do as well, and
Yeah.
prequels, and once you have this really game-changing thing, it's hard to repeat it, you know, by spinning off
Yeah.
the same sort of material. Like,
Right.
so, but it's still good. I'm still gonna keep watching season 3 when it comes out, which will be probably in 2026. And but there is a little Game of Thrones, I think it's like the night they in HBO's vignette of the finale of House of the Dragon, there was like the Night of the Seven Kingdoms is coming next year, and it's
Yeah.
another story within the universe. And we may get like Three-Eyed Raven origins, and like it's in between, like I think what I read is in between this and Game of Thrones time. So
Yeah, it's one
but
of the Targaryens, because if I'm not mistaken, it's related to, you remember the Blind Maester at
mhm,
Castle Black,
yeah,
that was actually a Targaryen.
yeah,
It's like his old like grandsire or something like that.
mm.
Like it's somehow connected into that. I think it's the one that he called Egg. I don't remember, but
Well,
it's
there's
in
Duncan and
between.
Egg. They nerfed that one, but
Yeah.
like I don't know that I didn't read too much of it, but I just we'll have to talk about that HBO trailer the next time
Yeah.
we pod, because I don't
Yeah.
want to get into it too much, but there's a lot
Right.
of good shit coming.
Yeah.
But
Last
anything,
question
yeah, go ahead.
for you about from my side for House of the Dragon, because I was reading articles about it and looking on Reddit, and of course, and a lot of people have opinions. And I tend to agree with them because Game of Thrones, I don't think went this direction until late in the series. But did they focus too much on Rhaenyra and Alicent as the center
Yeah.
of the show?
Yeah, I think that's where what Game of Thrones did so well is they managed all the pieces on the board without just having focused on a couple people. I mean, you had the central themes in Game of Thrones and the main families and stuff. But like I knew, they Ira was a Ira Arya was like in that fucking Pentos or whatever, where like the people go and borrow money, and like we knew everything about that place. It wasn't just like giving us a little bit where we have no investment. Like, she was blind at that point. She was doing that, and like it, you went all across the board, and you knew like, and when I forget the guy's name that was like Daenerys Targaryen's like support system that got grayscale, but
Yeah.
like you knew like how you got grayscale, and like the island that people were like doomed to when they got grayscale and they go
Valerian,
through
yeah.
Valerian and him and Tyrion are on the boat, and he gets touched, but we understood that. But I mean, some of it people understood it because of the book, and I read the book as well. But even if you didn't, you got the text, you got the information built through the show.
Yes.
That you knew what that was, or it'd be easy or relatable. In this, it's like there is a lot of focus on Rhaenyra and Alicent, and I think in the first season it was good as you get to know them, but like I often found more exciting, like when they brought in the poor people to see if they could ride dragons, when they were anywhere else. When they said we talked a lot about Damon at Harrenhal and
Yes.
touching the weirwood tree, and you know,
I wanted
um,
more Harrenhal. Yeah.
but even like the world's douchiest hand, Kristen Cole and Spider from Slow Horses, their interactions were much better, I think, than just. And like this season, it's like it just really does a disservice, I think, to Alicent Rhaenyra, because it was more of like when things got tough for Alicent, she's like, I'm gonna run off and like go swimming, and Rhaenyra's like, I'm gonna go mope. It kind of gives a bad look. Now they're making their comeback
Yeah.
story, or at least Rhaenyra, but it's kind of like, you know, they focus too much on it. I completely agree. I think
Yeah.
it could have been more world, especially since you were doing this season's just moving pieces along. You could have done more world building.
Yeah.
And you could have sidelined them a little bit. But
Totally agree. Yeah.
so,
Totally agree. Well, just manage the pieces right. Just build me this world. I know about this world, but give me some facts about this time period, right? We know the Lannisters. We know they got gold, right? And we know about the gold bank of Bravos, and all this kind of stuff.
Bravos. Yeah.
Yeah. But
And that's it.
Give me more of that.
The other thing is like when Lannister in the final is like at the triumvirate or whatever and trying to get like them to sail with him and back Alicent's crew. They're like, oh well, we need her to make sure you're good at sailing. No, Lannister have the fucking coin. You pay them like it's like the sellswords they would bring it. So like some of it didn't make sense from what we know from Game of Thrones versus like, oh, like when to make sure I can best you in battle. Like to me it'd be like, piss off, like I'm gonna pay you.
Yeah,
You
do
don't
you guys
want
to work or not?
Yeah.
I got war to be fought here. There's fuckery afoot. Let's go to war. Thought you wanted to get paid. Yeah. There was a lot of that just seemed excessive. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of nitpicks and stuff, but it's still well done.
Yeah.
Production, and
just keep throwing money at
enjoyable.
it. I mean, Apple's pulling back on their budget. I'd say HBO just keep throwing money at shows, and they'll take the top spot back.
Yeah. Well, speaking of like money and not as much money as HBO, one of our favorite shows, The Bear, season 3 was released. I just finished it last week. I think we took our time with it because we didn't want to be spoiled. And like what I like about Apple TV is they're releasing it every week. For me with The Bear, I understand why they released it all at one time, because it felt like one long show outside of the first and the last the series opening episode and the series finale. Give me your, because I got a couple of takes. Give me your overall thoughts on the season. What you liked and you didn't like.
I'll say so. Season 3, each season is great in its own respects.
Yeah.
I thought this season was great. I thought these set of episodes, right, kind of reframe the conversation from being about, it's always been about a restaurant and the struggles behind that, but it's more about people who struggle with communication issues, right? And a lot of it's stemming from dysfunctional families and
Yeah.
things like that. But we see a lot more of how like people interact in this industry, and how the young guys are all interested in work and the older people are much more chill and ready to stop playing the game and all this stuff. And then there's the cutthroat assholes like Joel McHale, which guy plays an amazing asshole. um I thought it was a great season. I thought it was an eye-opener for how people, I don't know what it is about Jeremy Allen White playing in dysfunctional families. Maybe he just has
Yeah.
that face from Shameful to now the
Shameless. Yeah.
yeah, Shameless, yeah. But him trying to interact with, a dysfunctional family with alcoholism and mental disorder, and Sugar having a baby, trying to deal with her mom who's fucking manic all the time. Um, it's just people who don't know how to communicate at the end of the day. Like, he can't communicate to Claire Bear how he actually feels. He wants to say he's sorry, but he just can't say it. Like, Claire's mom, like Jamie Lee Curtis wants to help and be loving, but she doesn't know how to do it without being fucked up. It's just an interesting show about communication to me. And I think if season one is 100%, season two is like 99, and this is like 98. Like, is it the best season? No, but it's the third season for a reason.
So what I love about the show is like we can have kind of different perceptions of it, but at its core, it's about emotional trauma and family dysfunction, right? And that's what was at the core of Shameless that Jeremy Allen White was in as well. And I think that's what makes the show to me that is so great, even when you quote unquote have like a down season. Um, just the interesting part is when you watch TV, like if you say your protagonist or the guy you're rooting for is Carmy, there's growth. He has growth as a chef, obviously, and that's what you see in this show, and especially in season 3, and you learn his backstory, um, all the restaurants, all the chefs that he worked for, the different styles, the different interpersonal styles and management styles. And as a person, what has he done? He hasn't grown. Like,
No.
how the hard part is, how do you relate? And maybe this is more, maybe relates more in real life because, when you watch TV, somebody, they're down on their luck or they're, had this emotional trauma, and then they build themselves back up, they succeed, and everything ends like in a happy story. I guess real life is like, what does he do? He just buries it deep inside. Like, he can't apologize to Sid. He doesn't go see Suge and the baby at the hospital. He doesn't apologize to Care Bear. Him and Richie never made up this season. Like, his way of dealing with the emotional trauma is burying himself in his work. And I think that's also what happens a lot of times to humans. But the one time that he tries to address it in the show, all he can say is like, fuck you to Joe McHale. Like
Yeah.
at the end, like he's like, I've dreamed, I've always thought about what I was gonna say to you. And I think this is why, like, this kind of drives like my kind of nonchalantness in life, like around what other people think of me and like not letting it affect my drive, is because this Carmy is so obsessed, not with the positive influences, like from a mental standpoint, but the negative influence. And when he confronts Joel McHale, he's like, I don't think about you at all. And guess what? I made you a better chef. Look at where you are now. Like, and so one person is completely obsessed with this one guy. And what a great way to shoot the episode where they're at the funeral forever and he's just staring at Joel McHale. Like,
Yeah.
it's just insane. But like, you want the guy you're rooting for to be like, fuck that guy. Like, I'm not gonna let it bother me. I'm gonna use it to fuel me. And, I forgive him. Or like, you use that negative effect to shape you, which is what he's done from a chef standpoint, but not from an emotional standpoint. And also his upbringing and the stuff with his mother and the family drama. But you see the growth in Sugar, Richie, Sid, the facts, his fucking mom goes to hospital, and of course Jamie Lee Curtis, unreal. But that episode is just like, it's like a standalone episode, and it's brilliant. It's like, it's almost like, it wasn't, like for me, like Forks and Fishes, where those were like, for me, the two best episodes of last season.
Hands down.
For me, episode 1 and the finale were the best 2 episodes. But this was like a masterclass, like in like supporting people, even though you've had issues. And Jamie Lee Curtis and the actress that plays Suge, just amazing at it, and it's just like, she was there when she needed. And even though, she would kept trying to do her own thing until they finally, kind of figured out it, you can see that happening. I mean, everything on that was like real life. Like, and so I think the beauty of it is like, what folk like Carmi's the main character, all the accessorial characters and the other, I would quote, main characters, because a lot of these people are front and center. We had a Tina, or
Tina
what's her
episode.
name? Tina
Yeah.
was great.
Which I think Sydney directed that, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, it was her.
Yeah.
Yep, it was her directorial debut. Awesome episode.
Amazing.
And that's what I think. If I think of every single episode as a standalone episode of the season, it was amazing.
Yeah.
As a show, did it move anything forward? Like, it all built up to the finale, and seeing like Carmi's thought about the review, like the entire thing. And then all we see is everybody else is celebrating, at Sid's house after ever, like you said, kind of enjoying like the perks, of like in the service industry, and you get to know your coworkers and people across, and you're just like, like almost like an industry night, and everybody's like just relieved and like relaxing and drinking and celebrating. And then he can't, because he, like you said, he doesn't know how to deal with people. He doesn't know how to communicate. And then the review pops up on his phone, and we get the cliffhanger of, is the review good or bad? Because we know his uncle is gonna, if it's bad, he's gonna pull the plug. They owe him a lot of money. So like, it's the for me, like, obviously, I think we talked about earlier, the premiere episode of the season was just like an ode to cinema, and not a lot of talking, and just like, walks you through his different restaurants and his background as a chef to where he is today. And then the finale, just of showing the different restaurants and the different real life chefs. It's really such a wonderful show, and that we have this show to watch.
Yes.
It's not you're not gonna get like the average, person that's watching like CSI or some formulaic TV show. But this is, even in its like quote unquote down season, it's one of the best things, one of the most beautiful things that you'll see.
Oh yeah.
And most frustrating sometimes.
Yeah.
But because you're like, Carmi, dude, just like,
unclench your pearls.
yeah, relax, bro. Like,
But you know,
you know,
it's such a you know, growing up in such a toxic environment, and then you know, Joe McHale telling him like you cut out all the bullshit and you are where you are. And some people use that to like improve themselves in terms of like
mhm,
work, right? And then other people use it as a defense mechanism to like shelter themselves emotionally, and then they
yeah,
stunt their own growth, right? Emotionally,
yeah,
and that's
yeah,
kind of where Carmi is. And I love that Joel McHale told him, like, I don't think about you at all. It's like
yeah,
you want him to have this moment where he's just like, "Fuck you," you know what you did, and Joel McHale's like, "I'm gonna go take a piss. I'll see you later." Like it just blows him
yeah,
off.
yeah.
Um,
Well, and we think about that in life, you know,
yeah,
in everyday situation, and you're like, where, you know, you become obsessed with hatred towards somebody,
yeah,
and then most likely that other person has zero thought about the same thing.
about anything.
And
Yeah,
yeah, it's just like it's such a great kind of eye-opening like thing to see. And like, but the bad part is people that would need to see that and understand, you know, they can't. You know, it's not like it's as easy to do. But um you know, like where you see the other characters in the show that have dealt with trauma to the same degrees can adjust.
yep. And
So
let me tell you, I think my favorite part of this show, one, I love that we got all of these famous people to come back for their side cameos. Jamie Lee
yeah,
Curtis, Olivia Colman. Um, I love the new additions. I think it was kind of ridiculous that John Cena was a fat brother and that he was haunting them. I thought that was hilarious and completely just for fun.
that was great.
Um, but then uh cousin's ex-wife's new boyfriend, soon to be husband, was Josh Hartnett,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
coming out of left field, didn't see that coming at
yeah,
all.
yeah.
Uh, I'll be interested to see where they take that next season. But
Does Richie go to the wedding?
yeah, does he go to the wedding? Is the show about Carmi or is it now about Richie? Who's the main character of this show? I think people are rooting more for Richie than they are Carmi.
Yeah, I want more Rich. I mean, like I gravitate towards the Richie thing because I think would relate most people relate to Richie
Yeah,
because, you know, you know, went through a divorce, has a child, is working and trying to ride. Like the ex-wife is telling, you know, the child that he's like they think he's lonely, and
yeah,
like he's really struggling to, you know, to survive and to make it in the world and to take care of his daughter and to do like he's like America incarnate. Like you rooting for him. And same thing with Tina.
yeah,
Like, I mean, though, like, and then Sid, like, I'm, you know, these are the people that I'm like, because I'm like, Sid, you got to get out of here. Like,
yeah.
he's not paying it. Like, he's
He's at the
changing all
party.
your stuff. He's like, you'll have more freedom of this. Like, you're going to get screwed. He's going to burn the place down because he can't, you know, deal with reality. And like, but like, and then even like, but it's to me, Richie and Sid, but you don't have the show without Carmi because he's that
Yeah,
emotional anchor
of course.
that's keeping the show in the same kind of place
Oh yeah, he's the
versus it
emotional
end
anchor
up,
keeping the ship in the bay. That's
yeah,
it.
yeah,
Everybody's going out to sea, and he's
the
just
ship ain't going to Roatan right now because Carmi won't let it.
that's right.
And do we want it to be there? You know, we don't. I mean, the other thing is I watch this show because it's depressing and real life, not like I want to see Richie, you know, succeed and Sid succeed and Carmi succeed, but it's real life. Guess what? Restaurants close all the time. People are out of jobs. Like, you know, it is I like that kind of stuff because it kind of fits in reality.
Yeah,
I can believe this happening, but
yeah,
you know, how often do people stay in jobs where they know they're underappreciated? how often people like Richie like are trying to do better for themselves, but they just can't. No matter what they do, like he
They
looks
get
over
another
like a
bite.
fork's on the floor, or like it just. Do you have a bad day? Something's always going wrong. So, Tina, who like is like just wants to work and just got laid off, and you see her backstory is taking the bus and like trying to going everywhere to get interviews, and works at the Bear because she had a conversation with John fucking Bernthal, which is dead in the show, but when every time he's in an episode is like he's unreal. You still got to see that show, the We Own the Night. You've got
Oh
to,
yeah.
he is masterful in there. He's so good.
Yeah, anytime he's in a scene of this show, he just owns. It's like, oh shit, like I forgot this was his show. Like he takes over the scene and just he's a different caliber kind of guy.
Well,
But I
and you
like
see
that.
he sees the potential and the
Yeah,
good in people
he's looking for the
where
best in people, but can't see it in himself.
correct.
Yeah,
Exactly. And that's the difference like between him and Carmi is Carmi's only looking for the best in himself,
yeah,
and but he kind of, he doesn't see the best in himself, but he doesn't care about the best from other people. It's all very him centric. And so, with Bernthal's character, it's like he understands people, he communicates, he sees people, he wants what's best for others, and will give someone a job, because he sees something in her. And like
he has empathy.
yeah, and Carmi has no, it's just driven by just emotional trauma,
Yeah,
and he's Arrested Development
yeah,
in that situation. But
yeah.
it's really, I mean, season 4 I think is coming out next year. From what I heard, is they filmed 3 and 4 at the same
Yeah.
time, basically, because originally it's supposed to be 3 seasons and they kind of extended it out. And that's kind of like, we're talking about House and Dragon, kind of feels the same way as, you know, kind of extending these shows out to get more money, more seasons out of it. But I mean, it's still brilliant, and it's still, going to be in my nice top 5, probably, shows of the year. Um, but it's definitely great to watch, and I like spacing it out so I don't
Yeah.
just rush through it.
Yeah, you got to savor the flavor on a show like this because you try to binge watch it and you got to start taking like Vicodin or Prozac
Yeah,
because it's so
yeah,
anxiety inducing. It's insane.
yeah,
But I love. I think and I'll ask you this question, but I think my favorite episode was the the funeral episode for the restaurant, and then he's like outside in like the loading bay, and
yeah,
Olivia Colman comes out there to smoke a cigarette, and they're talking about like how she started her restaurant and all this stuff, and he said, "What would you tell your younger self?" And I found it so profound. She was like, "Well, you don't know what you're doing, so you're naive, but that also makes you invincible because you
yeah,
just don't know what you can't fail at." And I was just
yeah,
like
yeah,
it was such a good like moment.
yeah. And I mean, it's a brilliant take on how, you grow through life in your career, and you're just like, when I was young, let's go get her. And, I moved up all the time as a manager pretty quickly at my first company, and worked my ass off and just do whatever because I didn't have like the understanding of the world, the work
Yeah.
environment. And then in my career now, 24 years into work, it's like become more cynical. You become more like I'm just ready. How can I exit,
Risk
this? Like
averse.
I'm good, and I'm no, I'm good where I'm at, or
Yeah.
and like how can I manage the next, so many times in my career, and like, and that was a great scene because it hit home, to me where I'm at in my career, trying, okay, what's my exit plan, and like when can I shut down my restaurant
Right.
and just do
Right.
something else? And but I think that's why, I mean, that was my second favorite besides the premiere.
Yeah.
Just because, I mean, the premiere was artsy, and
Oh,
I started I made a list of restaurants that were featured in the show. Um, with the French Laundry and Noma and Daniel, which is the name of the restaurant that Joel in the show is called something else, I think, but in New York, the real restaurant's called Daniel. Um, and Ever is a real restaurant in Chicago. It's still there. It's still open. It's not closed. Obviously Olivia Colman's not the chef there, but um, and then all the, I think one episode this season they showed like the facades of a bunch of different other famous Chicago restaurants and stuff. So um it's a good kind of like food tour.
oh,
um
love story
and
of Chicago. Like
yeah,
love letter to
yeah,
Chicago, because they
yep.
showed like regular people walking through Chicago, and then somebody like waved, and it was like I was watching it like the opening of Cheers, where people were just like
And
it
it's
felt that way.
such a great city, and it's
Yeah,
such a unique vibe.
it is.
And yeah, I mean, most big cities have different vibes in different
Yeah.
parts, but it was such like, I don't know, it was such a good show. And like,
Yep.
it's the first episode and the 10th episode were like my two favorites, but for very kind of mentioned opposite reasons. But can't wait for season 4.
Where do you see? What do you think they're going to do in season 4? Wait, does Carmi get over all this? Does he? I mean, does the restaurant fail? Now, I will say, to tie into that, I love that they talked about how when people leave restaurants and when restaurants close or when people just move on, they take the best parts of that restaurant or a great part of that restaurant, and then they implement it at this new restaurant that they start, or a bunch of people come together and it's all these great things from restaurants that turns into this great, even greater restaurant, right? I like that it's like pieces, you take pieces with you when you leave, and then
Yeah.
when people actually put them together, it puts together like this new thing. I like that they did that, but where are we going in season 4?
I think this is the hardest question, in my opinion, because, you know, thinking of like formulaic TV, we get like a mixed review. They're dealing with the fallout. Um, they lose funding. You know, Carmi starts a different concept, but they keep the original beef, which is like the only thing making money in that. And um, Sid Sid leaves and goes with the other guy, but is frustrated because like she's not as good as a chef without Carmi there pushing her, and kind of has a realization of, the love-hate relationship and working with him and making it better. Um, I think that's part of it's so hard because just thinking of, I mean, the restaurant still, I mean, we know it's not making money, even though they are always full, right? They're not turning, they don't have enough turns. Um, the accountant guys like, you got to get out, and but I think it's so hard to predict where this is going to go, because I don't see any growth in Jeremy Allen White or Carmi, and I see growth in the other characters, but where can they realistically go? Like, does Richie start working for, his ex-wife's husband because he seems to have a fancy house? Like, are they like, did um Carmi like go into, fucking mental health care? I mean, this
Yeah.
is just like, I I mean, it could blow all up at the end and everybody ends up with their separate ways, but I don't know. This is one of the harder things for me to predict where it's going.
It's a tough one. I have a theory that Sid's going to leave and start that other restaurant because every show needs a Nate the Great
Yeah.
backstabber.
Well,
Um,
that's what I think like historic TV would do with the situation.
I agree.
But I think this show is almost like,
Not
you know,
that.
it's not that Sid would be like, she knows she needs to leave, but
But she
you know,
stays.
that's like when she reads that review on her fridge or of the beef or whatever, like it has a breakdown. It's like, to me, I mean, people interpret it so many different ways on Reddit, but to me, it's like she knows she can't leave because this was her pinnacle, what she wanted to work
Yeah.
for Carmi or whatever. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, most shows, and this may turn out this way, like she would leave and go start the other restaurant. Then they compete. Maybe they pull Tina over there or Marcus because they said, "Why do you have a dessert chef?" And you know, like it could easily split up. Richie goes and works over there because him and Carmen aren't getting along. You know,
It's all
it
like
could
on the
happen.
nose, like shit that we as like TV analysts can see. Like any formulaic TV
Yeah,
network television would be like, all right, we're setting this up by doing this, and then we're
yeah,
gonna do A, B, and C, right? This show is not like that. I think it could go that way, but I think the show is gonna go. I think they're gonna stay, but they're gonna tell Carmi like he's got to figure his shit out because he's just an incredible asshole. And
yeah.
if you notice, everybody in the show does stuff for other people, right? Like cousin does all this
Hmm.
stuff. Like he's realized his like daughter is everything, and like his relationship with his ex-wife is getting better, and he's trying to be a nice guy with her fiance,
Yeah,
and everybody's doing stuff for other people. Like Jamie Lee Curtis is helping out her daughter with having a baby. Like all these people
yeah,
are doing things outside of themselves, and we don't see that being done for Carmi. Like Carmi
yeah,
doing that for the most part.
yeah.
Um, I think there's one of two things. Somebody is going to need help, and I have two theories around who it's going to be. One, it's going to be Claire Bear. I
Hmm.
think that's too on the nose. Like she's going to get in a car accident or something like that, and he's going to have to take
Yeah,
care of her. I think that's too on the nose.
yeah,
I think the other situation is going to be their father comes back to town, and either A, he's a recovering alcoholic who's been sober
yeah,
for the last 5 years, or B, he left because they were all dysfunctional, and now he's like fucking ultra rich and like
yeah,
he wants to reconnect, but Jeremy Allen like pushes him away.
yeah,
I think his dad's gonna come back into this. They keep hinting the dad.
yeah,
I think it could be amazing if they cast it right. I don't know. Like
yeah,
like bring Kevin Spacey out of retirement, out of his Me Too era to be their
yeah.
dad.
Or you could bring a, like, I don't know, the famous Chicago, you know, actor. Um, or the one of the guys that would play the Bears thing on Cheers, you know, or not Cheers, on Saturday Night Live, like the Bears, like
The
have
Bears.
Norm.
Oh yeah.
Is he still alive? The guy that played Norm on Cheers that would do the
I think he
Bears.
died. God, I know his name. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's I don't know, man. There's a lot. We could spend another hour on the podcast speculating because something's gonna happen to throw Carmi into turmoil. But
What about Michael Imperioli is their dad?
that would be good. Bob Odenkirk, was he guest star in here? Uh,
Yeah, he was their uncle. Yeah.
oh, that's right.
Yeah. Um, Dustin Hoffman. He's old enough. Almost too old. I
Oh,
don't know. Now I'm kind of like a Michael Imperioli.
I got this. Look, hold on. Go down the conspiracy path for me in this. Joe Biden's not running again. He's stepping down to play the Bears' father in season. He walks in,
Amazing.
he's like, "What's your name?" Sorry.
He's got to work the register at the restaurant, and he's like,
Yeah.
"You wanted what?"
Marcos, can you make me an ice cream cone back there?
Yeah.
Uh, and yeah, and there's like, where are we at again? Oh, sorry. Um,
Ooh,
Uh,
Bobby Cannavale.
Ooh, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Put some age makeup on it.
Yeah, there could be some good dudes. There could be some good dudes. I think that'd be a nice pull in for next season. Do they ever bring it in? Maybe not. It's always nice when they do leave these characters out. I think they do
Yeah.
have to sometimes.
Yeah.
Because they brought it the big bad for him wasn't his dad, it was Joel McHale. And now
Yeah.
he's like dealt with that. But
Did he?
yeah, did he? I mean, it certainly wasn't satisfying, but he said his piece.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see where they go. It's a tough one. It's a show you can't predict. It's very unusual. It's kind of like Outer Ring. You just can't predict it.
That's what makes it good.
Yeah, I agree. Any other thoughts?
I think we talked about exhaustingly about both shows, so I'm good, man.
Yeah. Bear
Great,
will definitely,
great.
I think, crack the top 5 of the year. I think it was a really good season.
Yeah.
Yeah. Appreciate everybody for kicking it with us this week. Be sure to tune in next week. We'll be talking about some shows that are coming up. Industry I'm going to try to get on. And there's some other shows we're going to try to watch. But yeah, check out the Instagram, the website, eventually the TikTok, and then Chuck and I are going to try to stream a game of College Football 25. If either of us can ever stop throwing picks for 5 seconds, and we'll be throwing that up on the YouTube channel. So yeah, tune in next week, as Cousin likes to say.
Cousins.